Hey, good morning. I'm Dr. Steve Stites, Chief Medical Officer here at the University of Kansas Health System. Welcome back to Open Mics with Dr. Stites. And what day is it? It's Red Wednesday. We're here with our monthly edition today, though, of Show Me the Science. As we grow older, a little less energy is to be expected. But age and exhaustion should not go hand in hand. In fact, feeling fatigued should not be dismissed as a sign of just old age. Today, we're drawing the line between a little tired and fatigued, and learning how to fight fatigue before it makes you frail. But first, it is Red Wednesday. Let's send it out to Alexis Del Cid with some special guests. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, and the head of the Red Coaters, Don Lehman, just came up. First of all, let me show you the flag. Amazing Super Bowl champions.
Awesome.
And then Don gave quite a gift to Tammy Peterman and Rachel Pepper. Show us the bling.
Isn't this so fun? It's great. Just for a minute, it's kind of fun to have it on. So what a nice thing for this wonderful red coat leader we have here.
Wait. Dr. Stites wants you to hold it up like a woman that just got engaged. There you go.
No, I want the ring.
Gorgeous.
So fun.
Dr. Stites is very, very jealous.
Well, he can come on out if he wants.
Okay, if he wants to leave the set, that will probably give Jill a medical emergency. I think you should stay in the set. We'll figure something out here. Okay. We are here outside the health system. Such an incredible morning. It is Red Wednesday. We're all expecting a very special guest. We're expecting Clark Hunt to join us at any moment. But first, I want to talk to Tammy Peterman about how special this partnership is between the Kansas City Chiefs and the University of Kansas Health System.
Great question. And really, what we know is the relationship we have with the Chiefs is far more than a sponsorship or a vendor. We're truly partners. You know that our physicians take care of the Chiefs, and that's so very important, of course. We just know that this relationship has grown over time, and it's developed into this really strong partnership and friendship. I believe that we make each other's organizations even better and stronger. I love the fact that we have a clinic out at Arrowhead. That's really fun. It's great for our patients. I think it's great for the Chiefs organization as well.
When I saw you and Rachel Pepper walking towards me, it felt like you were kind of floating. We're all floating on cloud nine. So I want to talk a little bit to Rachel about the gift that the Chiefs give the patients and the families here who might be spending quite a bit of time here. And when those games come on, or when it's a Red Friday or a Red Wednesday or Thursday, when it's a red day, what's it like when it comes to the mood and the spirits here within these walls?
Yeah, I think, everybody loves the Kansas City Chiefs, and our place is definitely no different. Our patients are often facing some of the most challenging days of their lives, and game day brings a sense of normalcy and a fun spirit and something to celebrate and have fun with. And our teams love it too, wearing red and really being excited for the Chiefs. So we're looking forward to the season.
Well, guess who just walked up behind us, guys? Clark Hunt is here. So what's protocol? Can I just call him over here? I'm with two bigwigs with the health system.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Okay, here he comes, everybody. Clark Hunt approaching, making his hellos to the Red Coaters. The Red Coaters are such an incredible organization. Since 1992, they have raised millions and millions of dollars benefiting charities. And in the past 9 years prior to this, with flags going out on Red Fridays or Red Wednesdays or whatever red day, they've raised $4.5 million, all to go to the Ronald McDonald charities. That is incredible. I want to try to grab Clark Hunt. Want to walk with me? Let's see if we can snag him. Ladies, want to come with me? All right. Hi, Clark. Yep. Hi. Alexis Del Cid with the University of Kansas Health System. We have you live on Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Thank you for being out here and for everything that you do for this city.
Well, thank you. This is such a great tradition. Red Friday, or this year Red Wednesday, is a great way to kick off the NFL season. The Chiefs are looking forward to getting the campaign underway tomorrow night.
Clark, you could be anywhere this morning, and you will be probably everywhere this morning. Why here at the health system for your first stop?
Well, we have such a great partnership with the health system. They've been a huge part of our success over the last decade. Their employees are so supportive of the organization. So fun to see everybody wearing red this morning, including you. Yeah. Thank you. So we're excited to get the season underway and really appreciate the health system and their many contributions to the organization over the last 10 years.
Tammy and Rachel and I, we were just talking about what an incredible thing it is that the Kansas City Chiefs do, and really our whole community. In the past 9 years before this is the 10th year with these flags benefiting the Ronald McDonald House. You have raised $4.5 million for the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Kansas City. That's pretty incredible for all the families who need that kind of help. How does that feel when you go to sleep at night and you think of what you're doing for families?
Well, the Ronald McDonald House is such a great organization. The way they take care of families who have sick children, give them a safe place to stay when they're in town receiving medical care. So it's a real pleasure for us and really for the entire community to be able to support the Ronald McDonald House. Of course, Red Friday is a tradition that goes back 32 years, started by my dad and the Red Coders to raise money for charities. And since we started selling the flags 10 years ago, it's just really exploded, and we've been able to raise a lot of money. And a big part of that's having a great partner like Ronald McDonald House.
And there's really no better fan base. I mean, I know we might be a little biased, but the Kansas City Chiefs, this fan base is incredible. And look who just rolled up, Casey Wolf. Well, he's following you around. Thank you so much, Clark. Dr. Stites is very jealous. Yes.
Just ask Mr. Hunt. I'm ready. Just tell him. I know there have been a few injuries recently, a little contract stuff. I'm ready to go. You still my fantasy contract from 2014, leading receiver, fantasy camp. I got my football right here, ready to go. Anytime. You didn't get that, did you?
I could hear what Dr. Stites just said, but he's so excited. It's all muffled.
I said I'm ready to go if he needs me.
Say something about Star Trek. Oh, he's ready to go.
No, I played both ways in 7th grade. I'm ready to go. Anyway, anytime.
He's ready to go. He's ready to go anytime, anywhere, Dr. Stites.
I'm under contract.
He wants you in the studio. Okay. I'm kidding. You have a place to go. All right. Thank you so much, Clark. Have a great morning. This is incredible. Casey Wolf is here. Casey Wolf, I know you can't talk back, but if you could give me one move that sums up what you're expecting this season. Let's see it. There we go.
He looks good. He needs to work on his dancing shoes a little bit, but he's good.
He might. Dr. Stites, I'm going to send it back to you in the studio.
All right. It reminded me of that old spiritual. You got to be ready to put on your football shoes. I think it may have been Long White Road, but we can modify it on Red Wednesday. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll welcome you back in the studio in just a little bit, Alexis. Have a great time out there. And remember, how about those Chiefs? Hey, we're talking today, though, about fatigue in older adults. How's that for a transition to go from Chiefs into this one? And joining me today are doctors Jessica Calendar-Rich and Christian Sinclair. Both specialize in hospice and palliative care. Dr. Calendar-Rich is also specialty trained in geriatric medicine. Dr. Sinclair works closely with patients at the KU Cancer Center. Team, thank you guys both for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, let's start with a study from 2008 published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society titled Frailty Predicts Mortality in Older Adults. This is a prospective cohort study, meaning that researchers gather baseline data on a group of people and then follow them over time. When you commit to a study like this, you got to commit to a lot of years to really get some meaningful information. And that's what this study did. They followed 492 people over 10 years. Researchers asked each person a specific question. Do you feel tired most of the time? 10 years on, 59% of the people who said yes had died, compared to 38% of people who said they did not feel tired most of the time. Or another way to phrase it, people who were tired at baseline were 21% more likely to die within 10 years. So what does that mean? Let's have a question for both of you. Do you guys ask patients if they feel tired all the time?
Yes, absolutely. In our palliative care clinics, it is one of our standard questions that we ask people to rate their fatigue, to just even give us a understanding of in their life compared to what they've done in the past. Do they feel more tired during the day than they usually do? And honestly, I look at fatigue much like I look at a blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation. It's a vital sign. It really is a way for us to tell, is your whole body working together to kind of pull off the normal things that you want to do every day?
Yeah, that sounds like a really important, and I can see how that could lead to some bad outcomes. So being tired all the time, is that something you quiz your patients about?
Absolutely. That's part of what we do is our screening for frailty, is our screening for mobility, and how well people are getting through the day and moving around. And so we certainly ask that question.
So what does it mean when they say they're tired all the time? I mean, a lot of patients say, I'm just so tired, but tell me about the difference here. What does it indicate?
Yeah, so being fatigued or being tired all the time certainly can indicate that someone has an underlying medical condition. That's possible, right? And so certainly we would want to do a workup to be sure that there's not something physical that is easily fixable or easily reversible that can be found and treated. There are other things that cause fatigue though, right? So whether it's depression or it's regular old debility, weakness, I'm not getting up and moving around, and then I feel fatigued, and then I move around less, and then I'm more tired, and there's like a whole cycle that can happen. And so there are lots of things, there's no one thing, and that's I think why fatigue is often seen as this big nebulous, like I don't know what to do with this symptom, and it truly is something that can lead you down numerous paths of diagnostics.
So Dr. Sinclair, is this depression? Is this illness? Is this lack of motivation? What is it? What does it mean to say, gosh, I'm just fatigued all the time?
Yeah, when I hear that from patients, I immediately begin to be curious because I don't always understand what fatigue means to them. It may mean to someone they usually walk 2 miles with their partner and their dog every day, but now they're only walking 1 mile. So is it really about physical exertion, like I'm fatigued, I can't do things like I used to be able to do, so they don't have the stamina, but they feel interested, they want to do stuff, they are doing stuff, they just don't have the stamina to keep up anymore? Or is it I just don't have that inertia, that willingness to do stuff because I can't find the energy to even get up and do things? So I start to inquire about fatigue to really tell me more. What does that look like in a day? What are you doing now that you weren't doing a year ago or 6 months ago? So one of the things is trying to figure out how long they've been fatigued. It's such a nebulous symptom. Sometimes they have it for quite some time that they don't really pick up on until someone says, hey, you've got to go in. You are way more tired than you've been before.
So Dr. Condrich, what do you do when people say, I'm really fatigued? How do you determine the underlying cause of that? And because clearly if it's linked with mortality, and clearly from the study it is, what are we going to do to figure out what the cause is?
We might do some tests to look at some different hormone levels, look at the thyroid, look at some vitamin levels to really try to dig in. We might see if there are other associated symptoms. So is there fatigue and there's also weight loss, fatigue and there's also lots of falls that are happening, fatigue and there's also other associated symptoms, be they fevers, night sweats, things like that, that would lead us down a different pathway of trying to identify a cause. And then in addition to that, we want to talk, as Dr. Sinclair said, about what is different about this? Why is this different? When did it become different? And what's sort of the trajectory? Is it getting better, worse? Are different days, different levels of fatigue? And what sort of connects those things together?
Right, so connect the dots between fatigue and frailty, because clearly there's a relationship that study found.
Yeah, there is a huge relationship. So actually when we think about fatigue, there are lots of different ways to think about frailty. I want to say first, there are many different scales that are used. One of the scales that's commonly used, we call it a phenotypic scale, which means it's really about how the person feels and how they look, and less about linking the number of diagnoses and labs and different sort of scientific pieces that can be pulled from the electronic health record. These two types of scales have been shown to be equivalent in the way that they identify frailty as it's linked to other conditions down the road and mortality. So our group tends to use this phenotypic scale, as I mentioned, and the number one question on the scale is, do you feel fatigued most of the time? And there are only 5 questions, and scoring 3 or more on this scale actually is diagnostic of fatigue by this scale. And so, even just saying, yes, I feel tired most of the time is like a red flag that goes off in my head about, okay, so what happens next? Because if we feel tired, many of us are less likely to get up and go on that 2-mile walk that we used to go on, or to go hang out with our friends, or to go do all of the things. And the less we get out and do all of those things, the less our body is moving. And as I've said on these shows many times before, movement is medicine, right? So the more tired we are, the less we move. The less we move, the more likely we are to get weaker and develop sarcopenia or some deterioration of the muscles, which then leads to falls and then leads to less movement. And it creates this whole cycle in which really frailty just continues to blossom and grow. And oftentimes it starts from simple, just I feel tired a lot of the time.
You know, it seems like you're saying exercise is a big part of the prescription. If somebody says, I'm a little worried, or if you're concerned about somebody going from that connection of fatigue to frailty.
So it's movement. Yep, exercise, whether it's walking, whether it's lifting weights, or doing whatever feels good for your body, it's all about moving. I will say it's also about socializing. So really my recommendation tends to be go on a walk with your friends, or go out and walk, go to a restaurant with your friends where you are together, but you also are getting out and about and moving your body.
So Dr. Sinclair, we hear a lot about how we need to keep exercising our brain as we get older. What's the impact of that? You mentioned socializing, but the pandemic must have been really hard on older adults.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a component of fatigue that many people may think physical fatigue, but as Dr. Callender-Rich identified, the socializing, the cognitive factors are really important. So people may feel very strong. We may do, grip strength tests, and their muscles are pretty good, but it is more about that interaction, that socialization, that emotional components, that their brain is fatigued, and that's a slightly different component, and sometimes or slightly different version of fatigue that leads us in different directions when we're trying to work up potential reversible causes.
Yeah, this is a pretty big topic, and I bet we're going to get some questions for it, but we're going to come back to it in just a moment. We're going to check in with Dr. Dana Hawkinson, our Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control. If you're watching live and want to ask questions, use the methods on the screen, YouTube, Facebook, the X platform, or email. So let's talk to Doc Hawk first. Hawk, how are we doing?
Yeah, hi, we're good. We've had a little bit of an increase the last couple weeks as far as our active cases here in the hospital. We have 14 active cases here at the hospital, as compared to, I think, under 10, around 7 about 2 weeks ago. So we have seen a little bit of increase in our active cases, but again, Steve, nowhere near what we have seen in the past couple of years.
So I didn't like last week's bump, or the week before last, 7 to 14, but from last week to this week, we're holding pretty stable. Yet there sure feels like there's widespread community transmission right now of COVID.
I think that's right. I think we all know people who have had it, or have it currently, friends, family. We just know anecdotally that it is out there. I think we have to say that it is higher circulation of the virus. More people are ill right now with it than had been the previous couple months, for sure.
And we talk about some of the different variants. We hear about XBB and now BA 2.86. It feels like, even though these are pretty mutated viruses now from the original strain, that they're still highly transmissible. Maybe they're not quite as pathogenic. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think my hypothesis is based on what we have seen with other variants in the past, is that really the type of disease, the severity of disease of these variants is not going to differ anything than we saw. Now, obviously, we know that Delta maybe had a preponderance or a propensity to cause a little bit more higher severity of disease, just a little bit risk of severe disease. But compared to all the other variants, I think all the other variants really have the same risk of severe disease and hospitalizations. But that is good news, unless there's a fundamental change in the virus properties, the genes that maybe help reduce our immune response, maybe other genes that cause it just to be more virulent and cause severe disease. Really, a lot of what we're talking about are changes in the spike protein. So I think overall what we have seen throughout these variants is that the vaccine continues to work and produce some neutralizing antibodies for a short period of time, which does help to reduce your ability to get infected. That wanes after about 3 to 4 weeks for most things, but you still develop a good T cell response, which is most important for helping protect against hospitalization and severe disease. And there's just a new article out that I saw that Moderna just announced that their current newest vaccine, which is not available just yet, does work against this new variant as well. So that is good news. They said that there was an 8-fold higher neutralizing antibody response that was done with this new vaccine. Again, that is good for maybe the first 3 or 4 weeks where it can help reduce your chance of infection. But again, we still have those T cell areas that are recognized on the spike protein to help reduce our risk of severe disease and hospitalization. Overall, I think it's good news, and we will continue to evaluate if there are any other fundamental changes in the virus, but it really doesn't look like it at this point.
You know, I think you made so many good points with that, and we know that this BA 2.86 doesn't look like it's going to be a game changer. May have a little bit of a harder time infecting cells. There's just little differences between all of them, and I love the information coming out about Moderna's shot, saying, hey, look, it is going to be effective. I think that's going to be great. So I'm still planning on getting my monovalent booster this fall. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you received your last booster last fall, then it would be a good time to get it when it is available to help protect you through the respiratory viral season, to help reduce your risk of severe disease and hospitalization. And was also reading just another preprint that looks like even those people that did have a booster last fall, they still do have some neutralizing antibodies to this newest variant. But again, I think it is important to get that booster when it is available, especially if you're highest risk. In addition, just have a plan now if you are infected. Test early. If you're at high risk for hospitalization and severe disease, get on Paxlovid. That still has very good activity towards these variants, so it will help reduce your risk of hospitalization even more. And so I think this is all good news so far. We do have ways to protect ourselves and reduce your chance of severe illness.
You know, and some people are starting to mask again, and I was on a plane flight this last weekend. I wore my mask. And then when I went to church with my sister, a lot of people in that congregation back masking again, older congregation, and you think, gosh, I think you got to have a mask and be a little safer. And so I'm going to turn to our guests here for just a moment and say, what are you guys saying to folks out there in the nursing homes or in other places? Time to get vaccinated as soon as it's available?
Yeah. In the cancer center, it's working with our oncologists and making sure that it fits with treatment plans, but yeah, advocating.
And what about the RSV vaccine? What are you thinking with that?
Absolutely. You know, I think these vaccines are tested, they are out there, and we need to do everything we can to protect people that are at higher risk.
Yeah, I think it makes, I know in my clinic, and I take a lot of people with chronic disease or lung transplant, like, okay, let's line it up. You know, we had Dr. Poland on the program a few weeks ago, and he's like, separate your influenza and your RSV vaccine around 2 weeks. So I'm doing the same. Separate your vaccine, but go ahead, let's get started. If you can get access, whichever one, let's get started. And over the next 6 weeks, you can get all three and be ready to go. But still, I think, Hawk, the recommendation is, if you've had COVID recently, wait 3 months before you get the new monovalent vaccination.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that too. With everybody that we know has been having it, we've heard stories. I have been recommending, well, you can probably wait 3 months to get your booster, and so that will give you even maybe more protection through those later winter months as well, especially against infection, which I think overall is good news as well. But I think you're spot on, Steve.
All right, I see that Alexis Del Cid is back in the studio. She's still the lady in red. Okay, I guess it's time for some questions, but Alexis, here's my big one.
Okay.
If you see Clark again, you have to tell him, I'm still under contract from Fantasy Camp. I can help them if that comes up.
Is that what you were trying to tell me?
That's what I was trying to tell you.
You were so excited. You reached peak frenzy in my earpiece, and all I could hear was this muffled kind of frenzied yelling.
Yeah,
and I figured it was you were in a Chiefs trance, really.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's true. And come game day, I'll be worthless until the game starts.
You know, I would recommend, you know, you step in for Chris Jones while they're doing the contract negotiations right now.
Okay, again,
they got a spot open.
Two-way athlete in 7th grade. I can play both sides of the line.
Yeah. Can I say don't quit your day job when you're the CMO of the University of Kansas Health System?
Sure.
But we do know you can sing. No, I've got some.
Or not.
I have some really great questions coming in, and there's one from Yen Liang, who wants to know if kidney problems can lead to fatigue.
Oh, wow. Okay, guys, who wants to field that one? JKR. Oh, I'm not supposed to use your. Too bad. JKR. I've been in for like 20 years.
Yesterday I told them that no one ever calls me Jessica. I don't even respond to it.
It's all JKR. It's too many names, too many syllables.
Kidney problems can contribute to fatigue, absolutely. I mean, any kind of underlying chronic illness, really, whether it's heart or lung or cancer, or any of the things can contribute to fatigue. There are still things we can do to help overcome some measures of that fatigue, and it's still important to really work towards doing the things we've mentioned, like movement and engaging with socialization, things like that. It is not all subjective, though. Like, I want to be clear. Like, there is real, actual fatigue from some of these diseases. Chronic disease can do that, but we can try to minimize it.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do or talk about in our palliative care clinics in heart failure or in cancer is really trying to help family members and patients be able to communicate about fatigue, to be able to share, what it is like to have an underlying illness that really does zap your energy, and make sure that people are not beating themselves up. I found sometimes people can get very down when their body isn't able to do as much as it used to do, and trying to find a way to communicate that to the people around them that are trying to encourage them to do more things when maybe they're undergoing chemotherapy treatment, and just at that moment their body can't do more.
If I could just add one thing, I'm sorry. So a really great resource out there for fatigue is actually occupational therapy, because they can help with energy conservation. They can really give people tips and tricks about how to maintain the energy that they have to do the things that are very important to them, and perhaps sort of prioritize.
Within a few weeks of a cancer diagnosis or a recent diagnosis of heart failure, so we are seeing them from the beginning of a serious illness to help them live the best life they can, to help make sure that they are tolerating the treatment, that if the treatment's giving them fatigue, that they have the right support to get through that. Like at the University of Kansas, we have turning points. We have the Landon Center. They have things like Tai Chi, and you know better for the Landon Center. What other programs are there?
Yeah, lots of different classes that are out there. So there are support groups and caregiver support groups, which is really important. But then there are exercise programs. They're starting a new Tai Chi class. There's chair yoga. There are all kinds of things. And not only are they getting you out and moving, but they're doing it in groups. And if you can't get out for some reason, they're all offered virtually as well.
Tai Chi, maybe they'll get me into football shape. Okay, Alexis.
You're not giving up your dream. No one should give up their dreams. Jeremy wants to know, do you find that patients are more likely to say they're feeling fatigued frequently if they're around a lot of other folks who also say they're fatigued?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I do appreciate when patients bring in family members to their visits to share a couple of different views, because the patient knows their own body, but it is important to get that input from people that see them and know what they've been able to do in the past, and be able to give some contrast that helps us better understand a person.
Yeah. And you do want to be around people that motivate you to be the best that you can be. And I think that's true really in all stages and phases in our lives. I tell my teenagers that. And so
my wife tells me that all the time. She is my best motivator. Get out of bed, let's get to work.
And so it's not that other people are necessarily causing you to be more fatigued if they're fatigued, but you really do want to focus on spending that time with people that are going to help lift you up.
So I have a question from Lynn, and this goes along with what Dr. Calendar Rich was saying. You had said it's not subjective. So Lynn wants to know, how do you measure fatigue?
So I may have misspoken. Fatigue is subjective. It's really about how you feel. So it's not actually measured in a specific way unless you're saying, gosh, I used to do this thing and now I don't do this other thing. So it's really about how you feel. And actually that's really important, because how you feel and how tired you feel is what prevents you or contributes to you not doing things or doing other things.
And I think, with the presence of activity trackers in our watches and our phones, that is something I will usually go to with patients to say, hey, I see that watch on your phone. Let's, if you wouldn't mind, let's look at, what are your steps recently? And sharing that really can give us a little bit more data in trying to understand the difference that someone's had in their fatigue. The other thing that activity trackers do is help track sleep. And so sometimes we may do a workup, make sure they're up to date on their cancer screenings, do some labs for some very common causes of fatigue and find nothing. But we don't always ask about sleep. And if we miss asking about sleep, we may miss a really prime cause of fatigue.
Alexis.
That goes with Paula's question, because Paula wants to know, and I would imagine getting more sleep is a big answer for this, but are there any other treatments for fatigue, like something specific that could boost energy, like a shot or a pill or something in your diet?
A shot or a pill?
I would make a whole lot of money. That would be great.
Well, and actually, I think the opposite is, I think we have to be careful because sometimes, especially as we get older, if people haven't been careful on what they're prescribing us or the dose, the drugs themselves can help cause fatigue.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time in geriatrics and also in other specialties, including palliative care, really looking at all of the medicines that someone is on and making sure that in that stage of someone's life, in that phase of how they are, and not based on age, by the way, based on their actual function and goals and what matters to them, really is each medication serving them right now? And do any of those medications potentially have an adverse effect that could be causing more trouble than it's helping? And that certainly is true with fatigue. It's also true with other things like falls and the cognitive fatigue or potential memory problems that Dr. Sinclair mentioned earlier. Really, we want to dig into how each medicine is helping, and are they interacting in ways that perhaps all of the physicians and providers that may have prescribed them were doing it for the right reasons at that time, and they just need another second look.
Yeah. And in cancer-related fatigue, sometimes we do go to medicines, like we might occasionally use medicines like dexamethasone or steroids for brief periods to help get through treatment-related fatigue or cancer-related fatigue, but they are not medicines that are meant for long-term. They're meant for very short periods and very specific circumstances related to disease and to treatment.
And caffeine in the long run, not really great for fatigue.
I mean, I think that much of the benefit is right there in our heads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we have to be careful with some of the side effects and other things, especially as we get older.
Yeah.
Alexis.
So Grace wants to know if fatigue could be a sign of an autoimmune disease.
I mean, the easy answer is yes. Fatigue could be a sign of a lot of different diseases, and certainly an autoimmune disease is a relatively, I don't want to say common, but not uncommon reason that we would find that. So it would certainly be part of the workup once we had worked through some of the more common causes.
In Hawk, I think fatigue's often a part of chronic infection.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, fatigue can be a general symptom of different things. So infection is one of them, chronic infection for sure. Autoimmune, it is not pathognomonic for one disease state, but can be a symptom of several different disease states. So it's important to understand, listen to what all the symptoms are, including the fatigue, and then do the proper evaluation, and whether that's a physical exam, laboratory, and again, just listening to that patient and understanding what else besides fatigue. But certainly fatigue can be a part of many different disease entities.
It's like saying shortness of breath. Shortness of breath can be from heart disease, lung disease, anxiety, or mental health. It can be part of neuromuscular disease. There's a lot of things that can make you feel short of breath. The reality is fatigue is a symptom. Our job is to figure out why you got it. Alexis.
I actually have a question. Is it harmful in any way to push through fatigue? Like, if you can if you're feeling awful and fatigued, but you force yourself to go to the gym, is that actually bad because you're ignoring a sign that you should be resting?
That is a great question, one that we field often in our clinics, and often it is that push and pull between a patient and a family member or caregiver who is wanting to advocate for them, and the patient wanting to advocate and push through themselves. I think it is very it's really case dependent. There are times where it is important to acknowledge, especially if it's due to an underlying disease, that fatigue is just a key component of it. And understand how to adapt and live with fatigue. But there are other times where it is important to set small goals and try and see, hey, can I turn 2,000 steps into 2,500 steps? And if I could push through it and turn 2,000 into 2,500 steps, well, then maybe I can get to 3,000. So we like to talk about small achievable goals as a way to try to see, is pushing through it a helpful thing, and not get into like a boom bust cycle where you say, I'm just gonna cut down all the trees in my yard today because of the storm, and then you end up hurting yourself because your body's just not ready for that. That's the type of activity we want to avoid pushing through.
Yeah, sometimes my wife will accuse me that, what are you doing today? You can't do 3 hours of exercise because it's Saturday and you're stressed. Okay, there you go. All right, this has been a great discussion. I've really appreciated this, and I think I've learned a lot today too. Let's get to some final thoughts from our guests. Dr. Sinclair, I'll start with you.
I think it's important to be checking in with your own body, and if you are feeling more tired, it may not just be just a one-time thing. So check in with the people who know you, and if you aren't getting up and getting around like you used to, talk with your primary care physician and see, are there things to potentially work up, but then also try figuring out where you can start to be active and set small, achievable goals.
Gosh, he took all the things.
Yeah. What is he thinking? He's trying to tell us something, right?
I would say that community is important. So when we're thinking about fatigue, community is important because it helps keep us going. But also when we think about our support systems and the ways in which we find our meaning, it's important to really know those things and to use those things to help push us forward. But I will say, I'll echo what Dr. Sinclair said, if you have persistent fatigue, you really should go to your physician, get that worked up, at least get checked in with them to be sure that everything's on track.
I mean, there's just so many things. You can have a low blood count. You can have, an autoimmune process. You could have, lung disease. You can have an infection. So lots of things. Final thoughts, Hawk.
Yeah, I would say probably the 3 most common causes of fatigue are work, parenthood, and social media. So you can work towards that, and that would be good. But no, it is important to go get worked up. Also, identify any other symptoms you may be having. And then on the part of infections, so acute infections, COVID-19, RSV, influenza, these vaccines are coming out. We know that they do provide good protection and reduce your risk of hospitalization and severe disease. Vitally important to speak with your healthcare professionals, your healthcare team, and get vaccinated in the next few weeks when these vaccines are available. And I believe RSV vaccine is available at some places right now. It's a good idea to go get that, especially if you are dealing with little children, because most of the time it's probably those little children who are getting it at schools or other daycare settings and bringing it home to you. So it's vitally important to get that RSV vaccine starting now, and then when influenza and the COVID vaccine is available, get that as well.
Alexis, do you have a final thought today? You look great in red. You've been out there with Clark hunting the Chiefs, and remember, if you see him, remind him that I do have a contract left over from fantasy camp in 2014.
I am so psyched for tomorrow. Just excited for the kickoff of the Chiefs' first game of the season. And I really loved what we were talking about outside, about how the Chiefs can bring such bliss and such joy to so many people, including the families and the patients here in the health system. It just is such a mood booster, and we're so lucky.
We are lucky. I was thinking about that myself.
Very lucky.
I often have fatigue after a Chiefs loss, but fortunately that's not been a problem since Patrick Mahomes came to Kansas. Actually, as Andy Reid came to Kansas City. I think one of the most important things in life is to find joy. And I think joy helps treat fatigue and a lot of things. And for me, Chiefs football, as you can obviously tell, Star Trek, live long and prosper. A little logic there. No pun intended. Yeah, it was. But joy helps us in so many ways. And when we think about the things that bring us joy in life, the more of those we find, the less fatigued we can be. Hey, thanks again to all of our guests. Remember that we always talk about in this program, that combination of faith, hope, and science, it brings us joy. Go Chiefs.
When their college student came home from his summer job with a stomach ache, they didn't think anything of it. 3 days later, he was on life support awaiting a heart transplant. The shocking diagnosis, as they thought their son was the picture of health. Thursday on All Things Heart.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now everywhere podcasts are available.
week.